great thing that you guys came up with to establish a committee to review for the 26, 27, to be able to save some money. But I would suggest that you get a couple residents on there, just so this way they feel they're part of everything. Because right now, as you see, sitting in this room, their voices don't feel like they're being heard at all. And they're not even coming to speak up anymore because they feel silenced. Doesn't matter what we say, y'all are going to do whatever you're going to do. And I understand you haven't filled a lot of spots of employees that retired and everything. I do believe that you need to focus hard on the employees and job descriptions and look into maybe hiring general contractors instead of having all these employees. It would save you on payroll tax, retirement funds. You know, driving around Livingston, nothing burns my butt more than to see 3 Livingston employees standing out there, one working, shoveling, and the other 2 watching. Again, there's jobs that aren't needed. Let's see, maybe you should look into putting some sort of trackers on the trucks, or have them log in, so this way you can keep track of what they're doing and when they're doing it. As far as the monthly car allowance of $750, the federal mileage rate for 2026 is 0.725. So that's saying that you're doing 258 miles a week, which is 51 miles per day. We're 653 square miles in Livingston. And I understand you have to go other places sometimes, but you have access to the cars 7 days a week. So, with regards to Tennessee Drive project, you started to ask the right questions about our cost and will we get our money back. Some of the more detailed questions should have been, what will our rate of return be? What is the time period to recoup this money? Where will the money go on what we make on it? Who are we going to permit to be able to build there? That makes a huge difference. Well, you state you look at the cost on how sure we are of the budget for this project. We went over our budget for the courthouse. And the quality of work is really not up to par. You got major issues going on there with tracks.
Thank you. Okay.
I got one public comment. Just nobody hardly knows it. It's in the library. Very nice one, right in the front. So if any of your constituents ask you, tell them.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll call the meeting to order, and the first item and the only item on the agenda are budget amendments. Joel, if you want to come up, please.
Each of you has a copy of 11 pages for the various budget amendments for each fund. As always, the preliminary budget from a year ago has to be amended for unseen or just differences in what we budgeted for materials, for different revenue items. So there's always going to be differences. Some are larger, some are different or smaller. Starting right off, and well, first of all, the projected is not an audited column. That audit won't be done for a few months yet. So we are projecting these based on estimates of what we had in early or late May. We had to project those through the end of this year, June 30. So right off the top, just on the first line item, the property tax appears like it's going to be $108,000 less than we projected. There are, just like anything else, there's receivables that have to be calculated, payables that have to be determined generally in 60 days after the year end. But for the present, right now, it looks like 108,000 less than we projected. Different taxes, you can see on the different line items, we're increasing that we collected more first year delinquent by 75,000 more than what we expected. 54,000 for sales tax. We project, generally Phyllis and I project revenue short, looking for more ideally, but we try to base our expenses on less revenue coming in instead of projecting high revenue and obligating it. That's just not smart, so we don't do that. And the mayor is very strong on wanting to show correct numbers, estimates that are safe instead of exceeding. Business tax, you can see, and this is one number that I expect to change, but unaudited, just per the records right now, we're showing 24,000. That should be substantially more, but I'm reducing it just in case it is correct, but I'd highly expect the audit will show that there's a misposting somewhere because it is much stronger than 24,000 each year. It should be closer to the 150, but just taking the conservative approach, we're showing that as not being fulfilled correctly or as much as we thought. Grants came in substantially more than what we projected this time last year by 2.5 or 2.250. It looks like Courthouse Square, we estimated 600,000. It's going to be about 91,000 less. You can just look on down. Building permits were substantially higher than we expected. The pool concessions, it may still be quite a bit more than that, but we're reducing the budget by 12,000. Sale of assets was stronger than we expected, substantially, about 100% more. Going to page 2, and I'm just hitting these, the larger items that you might have interest in. Salaries and wages overall in general fund are less, but that part of that is we're moving it to another section from general government into airport. So we're just moving around some of the job classifications to be a little bit more accurate.
So on the salary and wages, you moved 100,000 around, is that correct?
115 was moved. Part of it was the $92,000 increase into regular. So we're just moving it from salaries and wages to another line item, regular employee salaries. And then airport had a new position there.
No, what's the difference in the two?
Salaries and wages are limited to my salary and the mayor's, I think. Is that all? Phyllis? Oh, that's right.
And Kelly, the judge, and the consultant, Ray.
So the regular employee salaries are really a different form of salaries and wages where they're paid hourly. Down below, we've got $68,000 increase for architects and engineers. As the grant came in stronger, that allowed for more construction and more cost. So we had not projected as much architects and engineers.
Now, where's that?
That is about 8 items down under other general government on page 2.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
And then you'll see a 1.1 or 1.6 million increase in downtown revitalization that is offset by substantial grants from Tennessee. One line above is computer and software support. A lot of computer charges throughout the different funds. Street lighting on page 4 was increased by 16,000 because it looks like the projected number of 153,000 exceeds the 140,000 on the original estimate. There are a lot of decreases throughout, such as machinery and equipment on city streets. There was a projected expense of 85,000, or a projected expense of 100,000. 85,000 had not, or most of that had not yet been spent, so I reduced it down to a more realistic 15,000. That's on page 4.
Yeah, it went up 100,000.
Well, it was originally 100,000 projected for new equipment, but it has not been spent as of today, and tomorrow being the last. I reduced it by 85,000, and I left 15,000 in just in case there's something in there that I'm not aware of.
What you proposed a week ago, 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
it looks like you cut that by about 528,000 roughly.
This one, oh, you're looking in the other packet?
Yeah, I'm looking at what's the new one versus the last one.
Okay.
So you improved it 528,000. That's good.
Are you talking about the bottom line?
Yes, sir.
Page 4?
Yes. I'm not complaining, that's good.
Okay. I can change that if you're not happy with it.
I'm just saying you improved it by $528,227.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was probably one of those ones that did not roll over the ending equity to the beginning equity of the next year correctly. Yes, overall, the city is in strong shape. This is all about just adjusting the budget for where certain line items had been overspent. So we're moving from expenses that were not spent as much as we projected, moving the money over and recognizing, hey, we've got for example, you've got $80,000 that we're projecting in street repairs that were not budgeted. So we're moving $80,000 onto that line to show that it was appropriately budgeted. We're also picking up a $75,000 transfer of $75,000 transfer in from general fund to the street fund on page 5. We
Let me
technically
back up
don't
to where-
need to move 75,000, but without it, the fund balance would drop down below 100,000. For the equity. On the drug fund, there's just very little movement there.
Bill, where was that 500,000 you were talking about?
If you take what they proposed 2 weeks ago or a week ago versus what they handed out, your bottom line, if you subtract the two, they improved the amended budget by $528,000.
page you on?
Page 4.
Page 4. And where are you at on page 4?
Here. Nope, you need this one. One more,
It's somewhere it's in here.
right there. If you take that number from the number that they proposed 2 weeks ago, you're saving $528,000.
That packet that you're looking at now, that has the only difference, the primary difference is between the amended budget is not on the original version.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the amended budget for,
Well, let's go back to page 4.
okay,
I see what Bill's looking at. He's looking at the fund balance. I'm back up here looking at total expenditures. In the original budget, we had $6,059,000. In the new budget, in the amended budget, it says $9 million.
well, that budget has a lot of extra balances. That doesn't mean we're spending $9 million, not anywhere near it. A lot of those items are for accounts payable. Like I said, each line item is subject to an adjustment from the auditors by receivables and payables. Not going into the future, not being here every day to see what invoices there are out there. Auditors will look at July and August, the next 60 days after the end of the year, and they're going to be looking for things that are technically payable as of June 30. Things that have been ordered, either not received, expenses like uniforms. They turned in the uniforms for cleaning by June 13. They don't get them back maybe until July 8. That's a payable. That's an approximation. We're always going to see payables at the end of the year. With those payables that the check has not been written by June 30, but it's technically a payable because the work was done, but it had not been paid by June 30. So there's a lot of extra allowance in the amended budget that does not reflect, hey, this is going to be spent. It's just there because we don't know exactly how much is going to come through as payables in the eyes of the auditors. So, for example...
So there's $2 million of it that you don't know about then?
No.
Well, actually, it's almost $3 million.
Well, look at your projected column, though, also. See that if on page 4, your projected expenses are $8,541,000. Well, the projected column is just $500,000 higher. And that's just because there's so many categories. There's maybe $30,000 to $50,000 in the larger categories. And in total, it just adds up to a lot. But the projected number is what we're expecting, because we estimated based on like payroll. At the time, I guess it's been about 5 weeks now, when we did the original budget, which was earlier than normal, Phyllis and I talked about, okay, you've got, in this category, you've got how many payroll payments left? And it was 3. So in payroll, figuring payroll, okay, what was the last payroll? And say it was $20,000. So we had to estimate 3 payments of $20,000 on that particular line item. So we have projected as much as we expect And the projected column is where we think it's going to be. But there's going to be things that are different. So we've tried to account for those accounts payable and the accounts receivable in the revenue. But yes, there's if you want to call it fluff, there's an amount that can be spent, but we just don't expect it to be. But because we don't want a finding from the auditors that says, hey, you've overspent this particular category, there's some left in there, just in case.
So you put a buffer in there, and at some point in time, you'll get a rebate back on that.
There's not a rebate, it's just
Well-
like there's a pillow to land on if we need it. But we don't expect it. That's why we have a projected column that's been strongly
For
looked
instance,
over.
if you got a front-end loader to go down, you have to buy one, you got extra buffer there to help with.
Yeah, it really would only relate to what's already been obligated that we don't know about or don't have on record as the issue that the invoice has been out there.
On the, page 9 on the general debt, and I'm going back to what was handed out a couple of weeks ago versus the new amended. You cut that by 224,000.
Which line item are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the ending balance on page 9.
I don't have the original in front of me. What does your,
2 weeks ago, it was $1,031,182, and then the amended one come out to $806,599.
are you talking about the fund balance ending on the projected far bottom column?
Yeah.
Is there $150,000 on the original for transfer out?
There's 100,000.
Okay. I remember we added 50.
No, you're right, 150,000.
Okay. What is your revenue showing at the top? Sales tax revenue.
Sales tax, 500,000.
That's what I've got. What was your beginning fund balance, which is right above the ending fund balance in column 5? Where it shows 867,436, beginning fund balance for proposal year of 26-27. What was that beginning balance? Bottom right corner on page 9, where it says 1,031,000. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
What was the number right above it 3 or 5 weeks ago?
867,400.
So-
867,436.
That's the number that we've got today's version. What did it say on the original?
The very first one,
When we did this 5 weeks ago or 3? Actually, it was about two weeks ago.
well, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, it was 867,000. Now, the very first one was done. Was it the same? 867,436.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing the difference that you're talking about. I'm not seeing the difference.
I mean,
Okay.
you improved it by 224,000.
Well, that's what I'm asking is which line
Okay, let's see.
did the net change in fund balance, which is above the 867, did that change?
Okay. Part of it may be some of the paving come off, yes. Looks like paving came off maybe. Because there's, $97.52.98, so right there, that's what it would be. I'd say that came off of the books. Paving number 2, number 3, and paving. Would that be right? Because 2 weeks ago, it was over here. Yeah, these 3 right here. That was probably one to that.
I know that something dropped off on the paving notes.
I say that's what it is, paving.
Add them up real quick.
Mhm.
I think you're probably right. That's what the difference is.
It may have had the 97,000 in the proposed column, that payment, that paving line item, that debt has been paid off. So maybe that's an adjustment.
Yes, sir. That's what it is. Those 3 notes has been paid off.
Okay, good. Good. Going back to the budget amendment packet that relates only to the fiscal year ending tomorrow. If you want to go back to that same debt service fund, I'm only showing 100,000 coming out this time instead of 150,000. And that's just only related to the budget for not this. The budget amendment does not affect the 26-27 budget. Only the current year that we're in right now. And you don't have to write that check to general fund for 100,000. It's only there if you decide to. Like tonight, you decide to transfer 100,000 to general fund. You don't technically need to, but it was in the budget originally, and I didn't pull it out because that's your decision if you want to transfer that money. Going to street fund on page 10, you can see that water sales increased by 700,000. That's subject to. It's right now conservative, but I added that much, but the auditors will have their own calculation of how much revenue is receivable, how much is a different line item. There's sewer miscellaneous I added 30,000 because the projected number is about 34,000 above the original number. I can't tell you what right now, a detail on what that sewer miscellaneous is, but it's revenue. So I bumped the budget up to recognize that it's come in. Hourly wages were down by 65,000 compared to what we had projected initially. And as that came down, so came down the payroll taxes, health and insurance. We had increases for depreciation. We budgeted 700,000 originally. I'm projecting 710,000, but the auditors have those numbers, and so I just added 30,000 just in case it's higher than expected. Insurance and bonding looks like it's going to be a little bit less, so I took out 10,000 of the projected and still left a buffer in there just because the insurance is on a different cycle than the normal 12 months ending June 30. So the auditors will likely pick up some and put it back in this year as normal. Like their payment in August is going to be for May, or for June, July, and August. So they'll take a third of it likely and put it back in this, and our budget accounts for that. In the water fund on page 11, you'll see that we had federal grants. We had not budgeted for $152,000, so I recognized $152,000 to increase the budget for that revenue. The final number, when the auditors come in, it might be $20,000 above, $20,000 below. Could be $50,000 more. But based on what we've got right now, $152,000 is added to the budget. Service tap, water taps and sewer taps were substantially higher than we expected by $70,000. That's why I increased the budget there. The last page is natural gas. Gas sales there were quite a bit higher than expected. You never know a year before how it's cold it's going to be, how much gas you're going to sell. Accordingly, the natural gas purchases, I increased it by $630,000. It took a percentage of what your gross profit would be on the sales. When I added to revenue, I took a percentage of that. Recognize the cost is additional expense too.
Page 12. We're showing a decrease slightly, like 20,000 in revenue. But our expenses, from what we projected for this year, and the budget, went from $3,079,000 to $3,221,000.
Same thing, there's some pillows added just in case some light on. Like, I don't know what the end number is going to be for natural gas purchases. I added $630,000. It could be $680,000, $640,000. But we don't have those numbers yet. The accounts receivable on the gas sales that's billed and not yet collected, because we won't know those numbers until July, August. So we're projecting $2,550,000 in gas sales. It's going to be hit or miss around there, but it's going to be different. So why the same thing? See, we have original budget of $2,551,000. The numbers, if it were to be exactly right, which it's not going to be, if it was exactly right now, and we're done by tomorrow, then we will have spent $3,079,000. So in a perfect world, I would amend that budget to match that number. But that number I'm projected is an estimate. And so is the budget. So it just has some cushion if something comes in that I'm not aware of, or don't have a very good measurement on it right now. So right now, also, if nothing else happens or there's no significant changes, then you will have made $300,000 from the sale of gas and maintenance of that department, including repairs and such. That was pretty strong. When the original budget says that you were only going to make $33,000.
What other questions or for Joel? Anyone?
I'd like to sit down with you and Joel and explain this $9 million expenses, but that doesn't really mean it's $9 million. I like that, because I have a tough time, you know, I'm a disabled person. I have a hard time understanding him, and he probably told me what I needed to know, but I didn't understand. So could you do that for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you just take one category as an example, police department. Police department has spent, right now, $2,191,000. The budget was to spend $1,980,000. So that's about $110,000. The wages that we projected are probably going to be pretty close based on the hourly wages each pay period. So that's a reasonable guess. So that's going to be up. Overtime wages are increased by $27,000. But there's estimates in here, employee retirement plan, that has to be audited. But based on it right now, we have to add $11,500 to it. So where it says $95,100, we're adding $11,500, so that gives you that you can spend $106,000. Well, you're not going to spend any more than what it is, but we don't have that final number. So where it looks like it's $105,000, I don't want to restrict us and say, hey, it's going to be $106,000, which is only $400 more. So when I do the budget, I'm going to leave a little cushion in there for the calculation, which is only right at $1,000 more. So when we calculate that final numbers, there's $1,000 just in case this projected number is not right. One of the bigger items is supplies, $84,000. We budgeted $50,000, but there's $36,000 needed in case all that comes through. But that $84,000 also has an estimate in it where Phyllis and I say, okay, how much are we going to spend in the next 5 weeks? That's when we put this together, was 5 weeks ago in time so we could have the first reading of the budget. So we guess, okay, well, how much, when you're doing payroll, it's relatively easy because it's going to be 3 times each pay period. Each pay period is, say, $20,000, then we can add $60,000. When you get down to supplies 5 weeks ago, we know that there's going to be some, maybe some weaponry, some just, you know, all the different things that you can have, car parts, investigation tools. There's just so many things there. Otherwise, they would not have spent $84,000. Well, they didn't spend $85,000 because that's probably got an estimate of $10,000. See, we've got conservative additions to the projected numbers because we just didn't know 5 weeks ago what the ending number was. So there's a buffer in the projected numbers and a buffer in the budget, just because we don't want to find it from the auditor and say, hey, you've spent more than your budget. So there's 2 safeguards in there, and that's what it's all about. But based on the amendments, we're not going to run out and write checks for things that we don't have or don't need. It's just not done like that. So by the time you get through with that one category, if you leave $1,000 here, $2,000 there, $6,000 for this line item, just because, again, I'm not here every day, I don't see what invoices are out there, but Phyllis and I have worked to get that projected number pretty good. By the time you get to that category bottom, you might have $20,000. When you add 8 different columns, 8 different categories, If say 20,000 times 8, that's 160,000. Doesn't mean we're going to spend it. It's just a buffer just to make us legal, just in case something's out there. Some things.
What else? And I think a lot of this goes to that we've had several projects that those expenditures went into here, and we got a lot of that money reimbursed to us from the state. So I think that's where you're seeing that elevated number on the expenditures that has not been subtracted from that
So
in that column.
That is
So-
a very good point. On the airport, you've got over $1 million in that addition, but I don't know how much of that is under contract and unpaid. I just didn't have time to put all that together. So based on that, I'm not going to say, well, let's say we're projecting construction of $645,000. I don't know that there's not been, if you get a progress payment that is dated July 20th, when they sign off, hey, this is, it's good to pay. Well, that's an expense that goes back to June because the work was substantially done during May, June. Even though it was finished up in July, the auditors, I can tell you, are going to call it substantially done by June 30, and they'll add that to your expense. So we have to project for that number to be higher than it is right now. So that's where a lot of ads are getting in here. On the airport alone, that's the revenue. If you look on page 4, so on that one by itself, you got 680,000, but I suspect there's going to be some invoices that come in for July that's actually going to be expensed by the auditors as of June 30. So I've got 725,000. That's $45,000 right there as a buffer. That could be low. You may get an $80,000 invoice for work, but by talking with the mayor and Phyllis, most of those bills have already come through. So ideally, that protective $45,000 is not going to be necessary, but it's there, and that's a big component of how much you're over. Not over, but just the buffer.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you? Rex, you still looking, or you have any questions? Okay. All right. At this point, I would entertain a motion to pass the budget amendments, and we can do two separate ones if with the $100,000 from the debt service going into the general fund, or we can do it all as one. For precautionary purposes to put it over there and may not need it, so. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Accept the budget as amended and leave in the transfer to the general debt fund services. the way we originally planned it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Alderman Dale. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Alderman Elder. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Phillips, let's do a roll call.
Alderman Proctor,
I'll abstain because I did not understand the explanation on the expenditures.
Vice Mayor Dale,
Yes.
Alderman Elder,
Yes.
Alderman Langford,
No.
Alderman Linder,
No, but the only reason I'm voting no is on the property tax increase. I really think you guys has done a good job. If you go back and look at last year's versus this year, go back and look at this tonight versus 2 or 3 weeks ago, you guys have done a fantastic job. The only reason I'm voting no is for property tax. And I think we really need to have a work session on the pay scale and where we can cut costs. But still, yeah, you guys did a great job.
Okay, and we're only voting on the amendments at this point because the budget passed. So just to,
So
just
we're
had to
not
do with the.
voting for the budget, correct?
Correct, the budget passed
just-
last time. This is just a vote on the amendments that were proposed tonight
I'll vote for that then.
to the existing, okay. So Alderman,
This
Linder's
basically
changing his
affects
vote.
nothing except that we're covering our backside for the items that have been expended. There are several categories that are over. There are many categories that are under as far as line items. This is only to approve that we basically appropriate the funds for those expenses that we did not have a good number for.
What we're voting on tonight is just amending
Yes.
the numbers.
For the year that ends tomorrow.
Okay,
Has nothing to do with the next year's budget.
yes.
motion passed.
all right, thank you. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Linder to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Alderman Langford.